we on the live on the web tonight? Okay. Give me a prod when you want us to start then.
You're good to go, Tom.
Okay, thank you, Misha. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your attendance. We have a relatively short meeting tonight, you'll be pleased to hear. So, item 1 is the apologies. I have a list of people here. I've got Jeremy Owenson, Paul Cumming and Neville Mills. Would that be right? Okay, that's then noted. Nat?
Sorry, yes. Councillor Wood is running late, so she hopes to be able to join us.
Welcome when she arrives. Declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other disclosable interests. Inviting any from the floor? No. Confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 17th of September. I would move them as an accurate record. Is that seconded anywhere? In many places, thank you. Anyone dissenting? Pleased to say not. Chairman's announcements. There are none. Public participation. Now, ex-councillor Bass, who appears quite a lot at meetings I attend, whether it's here or Worcester, is always welcome as an ex-councillor. There should be some kind of badge, you know, like an ex-president or something, you know.
I'm just keen to see how you manage things, Tom. If you do it as well here as you do at ONS at Worcester County, I'm sure everyone will be pleased. Thank you.
Well, that's a very timely reminder of things.
Just speak a little closer to the microphone because my ears are...
Okay, I will do that. But duly noted. Thank you, Roger. Anyone would think I'd put you up to that, and I hadn't. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 6, which is the medium-term financial plan, which we have before us this evening. Andy Baldwin, I saw in the room. Andy, anything you'd like to add to the report?
Very briefly, thank you, Chair. It would be great if my computer would wake up, but I'll ad-lib anyway. It's not that much different to last year's, in truth. Any of you who gets excited by these things, I just warn you basically to wait 12 months. I'm sure the government have got something fantabulous in store for us in 12 months' time. 12 years' time. Yeah, that's forward planning for you. Where we can look forward to potentially having a 3-year settlement, God forbid. But this year is pretty much steady as she goes. Thankfully, the inflationary pressures of the past few years, or the past couple of years, have died down a bit, which is good. The government have carried on largely with the same funding that we had last year, although we're yet to hear that actually confirmed. That will be confirmed when the settlement is announced to district and all councils, and the date we've been sort of told for that is December the 19th. So not quite Christmas Day, but close enough for me. Yeah, it always is. It always is. It'll be 5 o'clock on a Friday night when they send the email normally, so they obviously can get no responses. But it basically much continues the financial stability we've built ourselves up over the past decade or so. But as I said, the really big year will be next year. But happy to take questions.
Any questions for Andy? Peter.
Thank you, Chair. It's a pleasure to see you there. Yeah, either to the portfolio holder or to Andy, whoever. The devil is always in the detail on this stuff, and I'm sure Andy's quite right that if we wait long enough, it'll change yet again. But as it stands at the moment, we do know that we're going to get hit by the national insurance rise. So I'd welcome some kind of estimate on the actual cash sum that will hit us for. I'm also aware, of course, that we expect to get the increased CSP, which will offset that. So again, I'd like to know what that number is, if we can make a guess at it, and I suspect it will be a guess. And then there's also the implied benefit from the business rates higher rate multiplier. which is a bit abstruse, but that again is possibly a benefit to council on those premises who are of considerable size. I would like to know if we've got a figure around that, just so we've got some precision.
Can you help us at all with the the national insurance hike?
Yeah, the national insurance hike, we've done some maths. I can't claim to have done it myself, but we've done some maths. We're looking at a cost in the region of £200,000 to £220,000. At the present, we are anticipating, as the government has said, that will be totally covered by grant. Obviously, if that isn't the case, then the budget that we bring in February will have to reflect that. But at the moment, that's what we're anticipating. I don't have a figure for any particular changes on business rates. It's always more complex because obviously large hikes tend to lead to large appeals. But if there's anything we can do in detail for Councillor Watley, I'm sure we can. There's obviously also the other change that was announced in the budget was private schools. And I am aware that that will, and again, I think that will just lead to a large number of appeals to the valuation agency. Perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on an open mic because they might be listening, to reduce the RVs of private schools, because obviously they haven't had to pay other than a nominal amount so far. So they've never had to quibble their rateable value. So I suspect they will challenge their rateable value, but that will also bring in, not to both to us and the government, a significant increase in income in future years. But as I said, putting a figure on it is very difficult because I suspect they will just appeal their rateable valuations.
Do you imagine in the government settlement that there'll be some element of ring fence specifically for this? It will be all kind of created into sort of amorphic sort of, mass of this is your settlement and it will include this and this and this?
I think for this year, they will give an explicit amount for national insurance because it is so out there and it's obviously new this year. I think it will be subsumed within whatever grant they give us next year. So if we do benefit from it this year or it breaks even this year, that will be impossible to prove next year, is the normal tactic.
Quite. Now I'm going to invite the portfolio holder if he's got anything to add. I don't want to hear any reference to the report because I've read it. But is there anything else you'd like to add, John?
No, just to say that Andy summarised it pretty perfectly. It's pretty much the same as last year with an improvement. So that's within a context. It's reference to last year we've improved.
Thank you, John. Councillor Driscoll.
So I know, Andy, you haven't got a crystal ball, but I know there's the government's fairer funding review, which has been delayed. I think it's anticipated, I think you said in your paper, later on next year. I just wonder if you can just explain a little bit what the kind of implications of the... So it's likely that it's going to be no new homes bonus, as I understand. And I think that's valued at about £500,000 a year to the council. Is that going to be, have you calculated that as part of a future shortfall, or have you got any mechanisms to address that potential significant shortfall in council finances?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, if you look at Appendix A, it'd be helpful if I could do letters as well as I supposedly do numbers. We've assumed that we will lose new homes bonus next year. It's been a stated intention of governments of both colours of perhaps the past 5 years that new homes bonus would end. It's carried on every year because they've carried on doing one-year settlements. But I think everybody anticipates new homes bonus to end next year. It has been a very good way of rewarding particularly shire districts for housing growth. It's not a very good way of rewarding perhaps metropolitan urban Labour voting areas in the north who haven't got the ability to build houses. I think knowing previous Labour governments will try and do a 3-year settlement, as they've said, that will try and move money from more affluent areas of the country to poorer areas of the country, and it will try and move funding from lower tier authorities to upper tier authorities. We only saw this week, didn't we, in the press, the current financial problems of the county council, largely driven by social care. They will try and address that through next year's funding mechanism. What the MTFP does do, though, is assume we will lose those funding streams. And if you look at Appendix A, it shows the level of savings that we will need to maintain a balanced budget over this period if we keep council tax at £5 increases per year. Obviously, if we don't increase council tax by £5, that saving target will go up. If the government funding position next year, which we'll find out probably about this time next year, is better than we assume, then obviously our savings target will come down. So we have taken a prudent approach, which I think is probably quite realistic at the moment. But obviously I have no crystal ball, and to be brutally honest, if I had a crystal ball, I'd probably use it to generate money for myself. I think this is as good as we can predict at the minute, and is in keeping with what we've predicted in previous years.
Nat.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I would like to thank our excellent officers, because it's definitely true to say we've got a robust track record for the achievement of savings. But over the next few years, we know we're going to have to make more significant savings. I'd rather like to direct my questions to the portfolio holder, Chair, if that's okay. So my first question is, in paragraph 5.4, it mentions current programmed requirements, and I'm just wondering if the portfolio holder can tell us what they are, please.
The current programme that's mentioned in the report, we've got the vehicle replacements to fund, and that's coming on in a staged sort of way. So essentially, that's the main funding that we've got on that capital items to replace those. There will also be, which we don't actually know yet, the changes to the food waste that will be coming in, so there will be a cost associated with that, but we don't know what that will be. We don't know what level of support we'll be getting on that from central government yet.
Thank you. A supplementary, please. So following on from that, a new administration is being proposed from next week, and Councillor Owenson has announced by email that new priorities will be set out during next week's council meeting. So can you confirm that the MTFP before us this evening funds those new priorities? Thank you.
Yeah, well, I can't speak for Councillor Owenson, but I think what he might be saying is that he will be putting forward his views as to what he thinks we should be doing. I don't think there'll be any real impact on the medium-term financial plan.
So just to be clear then, and without wishing to stray further into this fascinating debate though it may be, you are on record, John, as saying you didn't anticipate any additional funding pressures as a consequence of any proposals being put forward. That is on the record.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
On speculating on what may or may not be discussed next week, we have to remember that changes to the plan and the strategy that we're already following have to be council decisions. So any spending or anything that changes has to be council decisions.
Thank you, Misha. That's exactly what I was trying to draw out with my question.
Anybody else wish to ask a question or make a comment at all? Councillor Bennett's here this evening, you know. It was good to see him, and Councillor Nielsen. It's great to see you both. I'd be more than happy to invite you, either of you, to ask a question of the portfolio holder, or indeed Andy. No, strangely silent.
Sorry, Chair, I was going to ask a second question earlier. It's really directed at Councillor Gallagher. Could he confirm that part of the savings plan will be increases to the services we provide, for example, green waste and other discretionary services, at the currently foreseen level of inflation? And if that's correct, what level of inflation is he quoting? Because it varies every 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think you have to wait for the business plan to see what actually comes through on that. So and that will be clarified at that point.
Sorry, yeah, it's a very straightforward question. Paragraph 8.2 states that it's assumed that council tax increases will be set at £5 for the remainder of the plan period. Please can the portfolio holder confirm this?
Yes.
It's interesting, there's speculation, isn't there, at a national level that the Labour government may wish to relax its current straitjacket on local government in terms of the total figure that we can raise it by. I guess it would be unfair on Councillor Gallagher to predetermine what that might be, but within the current regime, we are restricted to £5. But that may change. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, because the government have been talking about changing it, and again, we haven't got a crystal ball. If we had, as Andy Baldwin said, we'd be using it to make money for ourselves as individuals, as well as for the council.
Okay, so we've got a recommendation before us. It'll go to council next week, I suspect. I haven't looked at next week's agenda just yet. So we're merely passporting on its way to council. Yes, there we are. Recommendation 1, council be recommended to approve the council's updated. So we recommend, I'll start again. Council be recommended. So we're recommending to council that it should update its medium-term plan. And I'm just about to get that, Misha. I'm proposing it. John, would you like to second it? Those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to... Come on, keep her up. The next agenda item is the quarterly performance report 24-25, the second quarter. Let me just think what we're talking about there. We're talking about sort of July, August, September-ish. Maybe June, July, August. July, August, September. Okay, I was right first up. So this is a snapshot in terms of what our performance was looking like at that period of the calendar. There's a sense of deja vu about this, really, because inevitably we're going to start talking about two areas of concern, and they have ever been thus, really. One relates to sickness and one relates to an element of performance within the planning world. So I will draw your attention to those if you hadn't spotted them already. I'll invite Vic to talk to either of those if you have questions about them. But otherwise, I think what you'll see is an awful lot of greens. When we look at greens, and when we look at all of these traffic lights, it really depends where we set the benchmark as to whether they're going to be green or red or amber. And that's to some extent they're national targets sometimes, but they're also locally created ones as well. And sometimes we can set the bar, the aspiration so high that we don't quite get there. And that's the case in one of the planning indices, that we then end up failing, but we're setting ourselves against a bar of 90% or something, when the national figure might be 85 or 80%. And I wouldn't want us to be castigated unduly for being ambitious and not quite getting there in terms of stretch targets. So, like all statistics, you know, one of the things, lies, damn lies and stats, they can almost prove anything if you want them to. But they are before us, and they're for us to consider tonight, so happy to take questions or comments.
Thank you again, Chair. Really responding partly to one of your previous comments, in Appendix 1A, line item 4, relating to householder application determination, our target seems to be remarkably low compared to what we actually achieve. I'm wondering, are we underselling ourselves there somewhat?
Which one was it?
Line item 4, householder applications determined within 8 weeks. Sorry, Appendix 1A, I should have said. You know, year to date, 91%. We're clearly getting over 70 consistently over the past year and more. You know, it seems, you know, should we be raising our game? Or Vic maybe can answer if that's a national target.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't know the origin of that target. It does look out of line. I agree, and I understand the observation and the question. So all I can offer is to take it away and have a look at that for future years.
That's fine. May I do a second one, please, briefly? It's really an observation and perhaps a question for Councillor Gallagher, in that appendix, sorry, I need to change glasses, appendix 1B, line items 20 and 21, green waste and commercial waste customers are growing gratifyingly steadily and have been for quite a long time now. The usual market economy question will be, are we charging enough, bluntly?
Is such that we may be way under what market forces would deliver. I'm going to ask Vic about where do we compare, for instance, with Wychavon and Worcester City. Do you know the answer to that? What are their charges?
I don't know about Worcester City. I know Wychavon's around about less than Malvern Hills.
Less than Malvern Hills.
Yeah, 50 something pounds. And Malvern's.
I think they're both lower, 15, 20 pounds lower, as I understand it.
Can I be perfectly frank, Chair? I'm not really bothered about what other people are charging. If our residents are flocking to us in droves, they're telling us that we're doing a darn good job. And I repeat, simple economics tells you, that maybe we're underselling ourselves again as we were on that target. Just a thought.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other comments? Paul, have you got anything to ask about this one? You've come on a wintry evening. Bev?
I have actually made some comments about some of this in overview and scrutiny. So
Okay, thank you. Thank you. No? Okay. That case, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Having done the three things I think we were required to do in that one, the most important one is to acknowledge the role our members play in achieving these outcomes. Well, actually, officers, sorry, members. It's I was busily trying to find the right page, which I have now, page 19. Yeah, we thank the staff. Joking aside, I do think it's the right time to say thank you to some of the portfolio holders who will be standing down as of next week. Because actually, in thanking officers, this is always has been a partnership between members and officers, particularly portfolio holders and officers. So I do think that my comment, which might seem a bit inaccurate, actually is very accurate, that it is a partnership. And I hope that's the way it will continue. Right, moving on to the next agenda item. Oh, you need.
Your recommendation is technical.
There was no recommendations. Everything was noted, I think. Vic, there.
I think we'll take it as read then.
Yeah. Okay. So, as far as I can see, the final item on the agenda today is. Give me a second while I get there. The revenue and capital monitoring performance. The recommendation is that the report be noted. Andy, is anything you'd want to draw to our attention?
Thank you, Chair. It's, again, very similar to the report we presented for the previous quarter. It continues to be good news. If you look at the table at the top of page 38, we are projecting a fairly healthy underspend at the end of the year. That is driven predominantly by excellent performance on investment interest. Good old Bank of England seem very slow to bring interest rates down these days, so that's doing us the world of good. And planning income for the first time in 5 years is actually above budget, which is obviously well done, Kieran. And that's helped immeasurably. It's also helped that a lot of the inflationary pressure that we suffered in previous years has gone. So if you go back 18 months, we obviously had a huge hike in fuel prices. We had a larger than expected public sector pay award. We had higher inflation across all of our expenditure heads, and that thankfully for the moment has died back down again. So we are projecting a healthy underspend at the end of the year. Other than that, everything is pretty much the same as the previous quarter, and happy to take any questions.
Any questions to Andy or indeed to John? Nat?
I do have one. I've been on a training course, therefore I am asking questions about finance. So it's in relation to Appendix A, the overspend to recharges and other, which is quite a high sum of money. I just wondered if someone could talk me through what that represents, and are there ongoing pressures on that budget, and if so, what are the plans to mitigate against them? It's just the big number that kind of attracted me. Thank you.
To work. Sorry, just to interrupt. Which table are we talking about?
Page 45, Appendix A. Under resources, I think it's the third line down.
Thank you.
Okay, never go on a training course on finance, Nat. Just come and see me. Yeah, it's a 56k projected overspend on a budget of just over 2.1 million. Recharges and other is where a lot of the weird things happen in the council. So if you can imagine, that's where all of our contributions to reserves go. It's also where a lot of the miscellaneous expenditure goes. And one of the main items of miscellaneous expenditure there is cyber insurance and some of our cyber costs. So some of that overspend will be related to some one-off additional costs that we've put into making ourselves cyber secure.
No, thank you. I know that's on our corporate risk register, so I'm pleased to see it being tackled.
Okay. Just to be noted, it's noted, I think. That brings us to the end of the meeting. I thank you for your attendance, and poor old Jules is going to get here after we've finished.